Oh, right. Just a second.
Okay.
Could I
All right.
understand
Good
that?
evening, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to call the meeting order and ask everyone to please stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, agenda changes. I do not believe we do have an executive session, yes. No agenda changes. I will take the one, lead us into guest recognition. Do we have anyone who'd like to address the board or anything that's on our agenda for this evening? And I do not believe we have anybody on this time. All right, moving on to item 4, 5, 6, and 7 is one motion. If someone would like to make it. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Yeah. Any discussion or questions on any of those 4 items? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passed 5-0. Item 8, items for board discussion and or adoption. The first item is approval of adoption of a resolution recognizing staff members. I believe you all have signed it, which will be presented on September 8th. I have a motion to approve that. Bob? Julie, second. Any discussion or question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passed 5-0. Following up on that, September 8th, I don't know how many board members would be available. I don't know if we have an exact time yet.
Yeah, it'll be morning.
It'll be okay. Board members, I may not be able to be there, but I think the more the merrier. They could at least be standing up there when this is presented. So if you want to text Brian and I, or Maya, Brian and I, just let us know if you're available and you can be there.
I will be there if I can.
Okay. Julie, Bob, you know, Jim, I know you're probably working, you know, and I may or may not be back at work, so otherwise we'll be there. Okay. Moving on, approval, acceptance.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yep.
I thought we were adopting the second
They are both, I thought we just adopted both resolutions.
No,
I'm sorry.
well, I've got 2 separate resolutions.
Is there a separate one there?
Yeah, there's a separate one for an individual.
Right, but I don't see it. Let's see here.
I think it was lumped in with
Okay,
A, yeah.
okay. Well, just for the, can approve both of them?
Right, okay.
All right, so if someone want to amend, who is it? You want to amend the motion that will, the approval of 2 resolutions recognizing staff members? And Julie? You
Sure.
second it? Okay. Then all those in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That work?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, item B is approval, acceptance of the funding through a donor choice as presented. I think Amanda Schroeder got that for us.
Yep.
Do I have a motion to accept that? Julie?
I'll second.
Beth, second. Any discussion or questions? And none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passed 5-0. Okay, item C is discussion approval, and we'll see where we go with this. We'll start with the discussion. There's a revised shared decision-making plan. I don't know if everyone's had an opportunity to go through it to see if there's any changes, or if there was. Brian, if you know what they were.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of a backstory that I want to tell in regards to this. So when I first started, Jackie and I got together and compared our notes on working with the shared decision-making team, because it's one of those goofy state ed plans that has some extra requirements to it, like it's due in February. There's certain membership that's required, and then Avon takes a little bit of a different spin to it also, where the shared decision-making team and the professional development team act as one group as opposed to 2 separate groups. So it's a little bit unique. So Jackie and I got together and shared the notes, and we knew that we were beyond the February date already. So when we were working on, Jim used the term the plan for the plans when we talked about that. what came up is we felt like it was in our best interest to have a plan that we adopted last year. And we completed that, I think it was the April meeting, don't quote me on that, I think it was at the April meeting. And then if you recall, I gave a brief narrative that we would have another plan for the summer. So the plan we adopted last year was the plan for last year. And if we work to try to align some of those annual cycles of plans, adopting a version for August actually satisfies our February 1st date for this coming year. So then it can be posted for the coming year. And then moving to next year, kind of the third part of the updating the system is in the beginning of June is when we will have all the plans come back to you again for to be shared at the first meeting in June, hopefully to be adopted at the second meeting in June, and then be ready for July 1st so we can build our summer planning and our summer programming around professional development goals, the shared decision-making goals that have been established. And then that will go on to inform the other subsequent items. So that's the backstory on just a reminder of why it seems like we just approved the shared decision-making plan. We did, but it's part of that plan for the plans to get this in step with everything else for the June, July update. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Jackie, in terms of some of the specific changes from the April plan to this plan.
Sure. So some of the changes included some updates to the SDM team membership. And so this information is located in the plan in section 2B, small letter I, and 2B, Roman numeral 4. And so this was the inclusion of having a higher education member on the team. We're currently working with Dr. Maureen Thayer, who's working with us for our mental health work that we're doing, and she's agreed to be one of our members for the team. So we've added her. We had a shortage of membership represented at the elementary level last year. Mike Donald reached out to me, actually Eric Schneider reached out to me and said that Mike Donald was interested in serving. So at this point, we have all committee members covered. So that's really exciting going into the new year. We also included under educational issues, revisions to a couple sections to include the social emotional learning standards. The standards themselves are not embedded in the plan, but there's notation that part of the work of the shared decision-making team will also include a lot of the work that we'll be doing with social emotional learning. And we've also added the information regarding the update to the guidance plan, or excuse me, counseling plan, the comprehensive counseling plan. We added a global statement about New York State standards and learning outcomes. So this was added to the belief statements, to the third bullet regarding the alignment of goals with New York State standards, locally developed curriculum, and learning outcomes. So just a little bit more specificity there. And then we added some information to the document under educational issues regarding the forms of data that we would collect and look at, including perception surveys, community input, assessment data, interim assessment data, social emotional inventories, graduation data, et cetera. So we have some more specificity around really the use of data. We saw really through most of these several months how much survey data we were collecting from staff, from parents, from students. So those were the updates. And I think in the document that's coming to you, I've had so many iterations of it, but I think this is the one where it's not highlighted and it's not scribbled on, but it's the one that has these underlined areas throughout the document. So that's what is being presented to you for approval.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? And again, I don't know if you've had an opportunity to go through this, but with the background that Ryan gave and what Jackie just gave, if you don't feel comfortable approving it tonight, we could wait until the next meeting. Leave it up to you guys. Julie, you're on I know you weren't at the meeting, I don't think, but you feel comfortable with what they did? I don't know how everybody else feels comfortable. So if you feel comfortable, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Jim? Any further discussion or questions? Not all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass 5-0. Item D is a discussion approval. I got the right one. Of the unreserved fund balance transfer update resolution. As you recall, if you read Kristen's explanation there. We already approved where we're gonna go. This is what's left over. I think
Yes.
we moved some and now the books are closed. We know how much money is left over and this is a recommendation to move over. So I'll open it up. Kristen, if you have any comments, or Ryan.
So were our funds that were transferred into the unemployment and the, tax certiorari reserves, not tax certiorari, workers' comp reserve, like the board already approved, but we needed to amend and add the technology reserve and the, tax certiorari reserve because of the appeals for the assessment, so it worked out,
Right.
well, that we were able to put that money aside in case we needed it.
Anybody have questions? Ryan, you have a comment? Nobody's got any questions?
Every
Everyone's
last Kristen works here.
All right, if everyone's good. I'll entertain a motion to approve that. Julie, got a second? Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That's 5-0. All right, item E, discussion, the state of the school data and student attendance charts. I'll turn this one over to Ryan, I guess.
Sure. So part of what Maya's been trying to bring me up to speed on is there was an attendance report that was done annually. And if you recall, in our work around bringing Michelle Burke on board to help us with FLA 2D, but also to help us with our own look at our own data in terms of the community and in terms of our performance and in terms of our general financial standing, was where we wanted to start. So this is a ton of information and a ton of data. So I wanted to let you know that the attendance report is in here, but I know that you just received this information. So if you'd like to table it and take a look at it, and we can, what I would love to hear is it helpful, is really what I'm thinking. Is this the kind of helpful information for the Board of Education as you make your decisions, or as we make our decisions moving forward? Does this give you a better sense of how we're doing in a variety of areas, so that your decisions are informed? And also, if there's something missing that you think would be powerful or impactful for us to know, let me know what that is. And Michelle is tenacious when it comes to seeking additional information. So at the last minute, I did have to pull out, we had a few slides around the performance of our students after Calnet. Sorry, scratch that. After Avon. After Avon, we had we had hoped to be able to embed a few slides, but there was an issue with the subscription for the clearinghouse. And it's something with the clearinghouse because it was the same way in my previous district, where it took a while to get that activated. But it talks about who goes to school, 2-year, 4-year, public, private, who goes back, how many graduate, how long does it take them. And it's nice to have that data for students who go on to college. It's still looking for that great way for students who don't necessarily go on to college. How do we track that information too? But it's hard. So I say that because we already had plans for some of that information, but we just weren't able to pull it together in time to get it to you for this meeting.
Yeah, it's only a discussion item anyways on the
Okay.
agenda.
Oh,
So,
gotcha.
if
Yep,
it needs
sorry.
approval, it'll be on for the next meeting. I thought it was great information,
I did
more
too.
than I expected to have seen, and I say, wow, I didn't know that.
Especially because of the trends and how, we're presenting it in the trends and not just about our student performance and enrollment, but then who we are as a community, just having that perspective and mindset.
The comparisons to the other Eagles districts too, those charts are really helpful.
Yeah.
A lot of times those questions come up, I wonder how are the other schools looking in that area? That all laid out was very helpful.
And I'm still learning. There's a bit of an informal agreement that when you're doing comparisons, that you won't list the names of the other schools, that you might look at just in aggregate. It's all public information, but there's a little bit of an agreement that the intention is to give yourself a benchmark, not necessarily to make somebody else look bad.
There's a lot of information there. I think it would need to just do a little bit of a deeper dive with me personally. I would like to just kind of slow down and kind of read through it, because I, was kind of going through it. Oh my gosh,
Yeah, it's a lot.
Oh my God. But I feel like it's really good information that could really help us. So, yeah, I think it's good that you're having more time to look at it. And
Sure.
kind of just pull out some questions or anything that we want to just start with. Yeah, this is happening really well for us.
Sounds great. So if you have any questions about some of the data here, please feel free to shoot me and Rodney an email, and we will get you get to the information back. I will also work with Michelle to make sure that all the sources are cited too, so you know where she's grabbing that information from. And Kristen also, I don't want to blow past the fact that Kristen helped us to identify some of the financial graphs and representations tables that would make the most sense, things that are commonly looked at, and it'd be helpful to have just as that overall 30,000 foot view of us versus some other districts and schools.
So what happens with this information?
Well, one of the things we're going to do is talk about it as a leadership team. They did not, because of the timing that we're working on, they have not had a chance to dive through it. They received it at the same time you did. So we're going to have some discussions about it there. And then ideally, I'd like to get to a point where this becomes like an annual publication or something for the newsletter, or newsletter type information that could be a report to the community as far as how we're doing. That's where I'd like to go with it. But this is version 1.0, and I want to take some baby steps on it. And as my dad said, not let my crocodile mouth outdo my hummingbird abilities. So.
A hummingbird flaps his wings. Go ahead. Anybody's got any questions? Whether or not do we have to approve this? I don't
No,
think we have
no,
to.
you don't have to.
It's just a
I
discussion
misspoke.
item.
I misspoke.
But,
I was
you know,
reading
please,
wrong.
look it over. If you haven't looked it over and you have more questions, please send them to us and let us know. If you need more information, and as we're going to do a little bit of revision.
Most things are self-explanatory. I've never seen the staff retention heat map. That was something new and different, and obviously because of the scope of it, I can't really read the writing.
Gotcha.
And just maybe what is that indicating? And maybe that's something that happens after you've had the chance to distill it with the leadership team.
No, this is one of the ones I'm most excited about. This is Michelle made this herself. So this is looking, it's a profile of our staff, and to identify how many years of service they had completed with us at the time that she made it. So if you're looking at so every entry where it says elementary school, and there's a different entry all the way down, that represents a teacher or a faculty member. And so people with the zeros were newer staff. People with the 1 were 1 year. So it's helpful to think about when we do a commitment to something like restorative practices. Like when you look at it, when a school-wide training took place for something like restorative practices, to be able to go back and look at this to say, oh, how many people work here when we did that core training? So we talk about it as though everybody has it and everybody's brought it along, but some people had a different experience learning it than others did. Like somebody may have had the deep dive where others are learning about it as part of the new teacher training, but not necessarily getting the same level of support. So that's just an example, and I think it's just a good profile of the relative makeup of our faculty. So yeah, Michelle created that on her own. Well, I wanted something like this because of that training concept, but she was able to figure out a way to do it and put it together for us.
So this is our current, like
It was last year. She developed this last year, sometime around April, I think.
That's cool with the shading, because then you can identify those at the top, like maybe it's a little more at elementary, more people, fewer, those sort of things, so you can target, say, oh, so that's a group within the, we haven't touched on this in the last couple of years in these guys and stuff.
Yeah. Are there any other, I mean, there is a lot of information, even on, some of the graphs are challenging because there's actually 2 pieces of information on the y-axis. There's something on the x-axis, but then there might be something on the left-hand side and something else is represented on the right-hand side. So there's just a lot of information to it. The other one that I wanted to just point out briefly is when you look at the academic performance graph, number one, that's last year's data. So that's old information, remembering that the state tests were canceled. And then there's 3 different versions of that. It's us versus the county, us versus Genesee Valley BOCES, and us versus all schools in the state. So that's why it looks like the same graph 3 times, but it's really 3 different comparison groups.
I like how that's mapped out in terms of the shade, the line, the median, and then
So, and then, we'll talk more about what to do with academic performance data. I tend to think you don't get a lot of answers looking at academic performance data. You tend to identify more of the questions that you need to be asking. But it's never, one graph is never the whole story. Okay, so if you have any questions around this, please let me know. We'll happily try to address or explain or clarify, and if there's some other piece that you would like, Michelle is tenacious about finding the data and getting into a visual representation, so she does outstanding work for us. Really excited to have her. I'm sure Jim is too.
Absolutely. She's a great addition.
Okay, moving on to reports, President's report. Maya had called me about the NISBA convention, having it put on as a line item, and I told her, no, just send notes over to you guys, but I think it's worthwhile just talking about it briefly. Those who want to sign up, you know, what it curtails or whatever, but, you know, sign up, there's a law conference, there's a communication, and again, all this is virtual. But any of the other sessions, if you sign up for the convention, if the sessions can be taped, they're yours to look at any time, because a lot of this stuff is going on during the week, obviously, and we're not taking off going down there, so most of us are working. But if you sign up, you'd have the access to all those things, except for those who have rights to it. So I'm thinking the 3 keynote speakers aren't going to allow us to take that. So, but please feel free to sign up for whatever you want to. Again, this is a training. This is, you know, professional development for board members. So again, it's not the greatest because I don't like the virtual thing, but you still get some good information out of that. So if you want to sign up, please sign up. So I don't know if you got Maya sent the note out, if you responded or not, but just wanted to pass that on, that you do have the option of keeping all that, any of those sessions that you might have. So unfortunately, I have to be at all. So
Is there a deadline for that registration?
yes, there is.
And the law conference is more expensive, right, if you do?
Yeah, I mean, everything's been reduced. The prices have been reduced. But I guess my point of it, if it's something that is valuable, if you see something that's valued to it, it's the cost is worth the cost of doing that, so that you get that information. I know Beth has already said she's seen something at a law conference that she really like to see. So
Like last year, I went to the communications, and that's where I got to see Mark Brackett. I still get emails from the group, which is cool. But I wasn't so enamored with the topics this year, but I am with the ones from the law, so I asked Maya about that part, and I did print a copy. It's easy enough on the site, in terms of all of the sessions.
deadline date.
And I think the silver lining here is because they know that it's like the web-based. If you're not there for a long time, and you can probably get a lot more information, a lot of other different things. Like because we're the 3028 here, there's a mock section on that, you know, which would be great, because hopefully we don't find ourselves in that situation, but yeah, I already went through and highlighted all my interests,
So about the business meeting, it's going to be on Saturdays. Okay, so I know that that was a big concern that we had, that, you know, if you want people there to vote, if they're working, they're not going to come there to vote. So the business meeting is on Saturday. Virtual, of course, I think you'll be getting in.
I'm not seeing a clear deadline, but we're under the reduced registration from now until the 13th of September.
There you go.
Then there's a higher fee to still register after the 14th. And probably most importantly, the deadline for a refund is October 13th.
Yeah.
So, and
That's
that's
the
just
next couple of weeks. If we can get in there early, September 13th.
Yeah.
But again, if you're working or something, again, if you sign up there, whatever is there available for you to go in there and look at your leisure at nighttime or daytime, it's take if it's take. I'm not sure if they're marked, which I don't think they know yet, if we've got the okay, who can we take, who we can't take. But
it doesn't
just the
say.
keynote speakers, we're thinking the speakers are the ones that we're thinking they're gonna.
That'll
So
be
we
good to
can't take
know.
it.
We'll want to get our money's worth.
Yeah.
If we're registering, and we want to make sure
Yeah.
we're attending these sessions or get access.
Well, we're paying them regardless, but they just don't want it to be out there, so in case they go to the speak someplace else, you know, pass it on to somebody.
Do you know if they'll have downloadable resources like they have in the past, or?
Yeah, I mean, all of it's downloadable for you. I mean, 2 months from now, you can go in there and look at those programs. They're sort of telling you how long you're gonna be up there.
Yeah, right now it just lists like just a couple of statements about the topic, and it doesn't have anything else.
Oh,
in terms of who the speaker is, or
Oh,
not
I
like we
don't
did
know.
before? Probably
Yeah,
closer
yeah,
when
it's
we
probably,
get to it.
we'll probably get the packet, well, we're gonna get the packet and the bylaws that we're all gonna have to pass on, just like we normally do. I'm suspecting, trying to think, I have a call Wednesday, but that's regarding one of the committees. I think it's next week, I'll have a call with our NISBA, and I'll find out before next week. Well, it has to be before next.
Is anybody else thinking of the law or
I'll be at the law.
The law.
Okay, that's all I have, thank you. Legislative, Julie?
Yep, Cindy Flowers from Geneseo is going to host the Geneseo Valley School Board. I guess they're gonna call it like a primer. It's at 4:30. It starts at 4:30, but then it'll go and there'll be a quick break for dinner. They haven't decided the keynote and the sessions, from the survey that we all took. That's what they're gonna generate out of that. It will be Zoomed, so for those that can attend, they can attend via Zoom. So I think that's kind of a neat thing, because geographically, for the 22 districts, it's not always close, so.
What's the date?
It is the 28th of September, starts at 4:30, but I think the sessions probably won't begin until after dinner. So I think they're doing like a round table and a board meeting, so.
do you think they'll record it, because we're here?
Oh, we're here for that. Oh yeah, they'll
Yeah, we
be
have a
recording
meeting
it.
that day.
I probably will go to the 4:30 if we have our board meeting at
Well, we have a
6.
learning session that day too.
No, that's the 14th, right?
No, Kevin.
There was a previous one, the 28th,
Oh.
but they're not set in stone. We
Alright.
can,
Well, I don't have to attend that either, so.
Okay.
I mean, if I
Well,
can, I
Kevin,
can't.
Kevin
I
said
helpful
one
for
week
you
right
to
now, so we've changed
not
it.
I'm flexible, so I just wanted to pass that information on. Thank you for filling out the survey, and I'm sure Pat will have follow-ups from that. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. Moving on to administrators' reports. Questions on their written reports? Comments on the written reports?
Very appreciative. How are you feeling?
Really weird, like 5 minutes ago, I was thinking, somebody asked me that question, I don't know what I would say. So, you all know.
It probably changes, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes your head hurts because you realize that you have to figure something out, and then invariably it just comes to you, it works out, someone offers a suggestion. I met with Ryan today, and he did that to me, gave me a headache, and I was trying to figure out what I could do. And then later I got a phone call from someone who shared an idea, and it was like, wow, this could all work out. And so things just keep falling into place.
Good.
And it feels good when you come up with a solution. And it's not just me, it's all sorts of different people offering up different ideas, and the flexibility has been fantastic by staff. The other day I needed some resources for the art room, and I threw out just a questionnaire about some supplies that people had in their room, furniture, and everybody offered up the tables that we needed. So it's just great teamwork that's happening.
I was going to say, in addition to what we were talking about with the report that Michelle Burke ran, she and Christina and I are scheduling a time. We had a time scheduled, but we had to cancel it because of the number of trainings that were going on, and Christina wasn't able to avail herself. But we're talking about how we can come together and look at School Tool as a resource to run through certain data points where teachers can have, for example, even something as simple as kindergartners' letter sound acquisition, and looking at different data pieces that we could put into School Tool where teachers could, kind of house the information there. And this was Michelle's suggestion. I thought it was great, and then we could run reports off of that. So when I was looking at this big report, I was thinking about how some of those areas may change or adjust based on our better way of collecting data and being able to respond to it. So I'm looking forward to that meeting with her and Christina.
So the hybrid model is pretty complex and has a lot of moving parts, and it feels like the more we collaborate and work on it together, the more it's coming together. So I feel pretty good about where we're at this week. As
Today.
Rob said, things keep, coming up and challenges, and staff has been great, just offering a hand whenever we need it. Working with department leaders the last couple of weeks, collaborating with them, that's been really helpful. Working with the leadership team this summer, counselors have been great trying to manage the schedule, so student schedules are probably a little later than usual, but they should be out good this week. Just balancing the numbers to get them to where we need to be.
Actually, Brian and Kim Myron and I have a Google Meet on Thursday at 3 o'clock for the parents of students with IEPs, 504s, and ENL learners. We're working right now to get an interpreter. One of our teachers is going to be an interpreter during the meeting. So we're excited about that. The 4 or 5 phone calls that I have gotten has been, ones to reassure parents, but luckily I haven't gotten a ton of calls. So, but I've been trying to send some communication each few days, to kind of keep them abreast of things going on. So I'm looking forward to that. And we have a parent survey going out to the parents of students with special needs probably tomorrow afternoon. Yeah, that's good. Special ed, we always kind of come in at the last minute. We gotta wait for general ed to figure out everything first.
Well, I know community-wise, people are very impressed with the level of communication, the collaboration, the amount of work, with everything that's being posted and the questions and things like that.
Yeah, we saw as we go through and got our remote requests, we're all running at about 5% of the student population. So that's pretty impressive that 95% of the families are sending either to the hybrid or the in-person model, which is great.
Yeah, I think communication is the key because, no matter what we do, and we're always going to run the side of safety, but you're still going to have one side that's not happy with whatever we're doing, another side isn't, but the communication key. They may not like it, but they're extremely happy with the communication and that they're getting. So,
yeah, balancing everybody's needs. If safety is the
right,
where we go, it has been a little tricky at times, but I think people are feeling pretty good.
For the older students, thinking about a way to bring it home for them too, and they probably want some direct teaching. So I do have a plan to run some student forums next week and the week after for 9th and 12th grade. So it'll be, presentation of what they can expect for this year, just to start the year to open, and some question answer. So that'll be happening. Thursday we have a freshman orientation. I'm going to do their panel then. And then the following Thursday, I'm going to meet with 10, 11, 12.
okay. Well, thanks. Kristen, did you have anything you want to report or add before I turn it over to Ryan?
No, good.
You good?
Good.
Okay, Ryan.
I just, again, have to thank the team. Like, when you think about, we're all feeling a little last minute, but when you think about the level of planning that's happened and having to wait for some information before you can move ahead has been hard. I think I wrote to one of the groups about the idea that old feeling you used to get when you take tests and everybody starts finishing and you feel like you're behind all the time. I think most of us have felt that way all summer long, but because we're on our pace doing what's right for our groups and working collaboratively, it's not always efficient to be collaborative, but it's usually very effective. So I feel really good about the work that we've done. Thank you to all the administrators for continuing to work in your special areas. Kristen is not only doing the budget work, but also the point person for all of the operations committee, which is minor little things like feeding 950 kids a day and transporting 950 kids a day. So, and she just keeps working on those things. So I just want to thank the team for all of those things. One of the items that's a little bit of a push because of the complexity is the newsletter and the calendar we are working on. We have final copies. We're probably a little delayed on that, a week or 10 days or so. Our plan is to put out the calendar with the dates listed, but with a disclaimer that because it's there doesn't mean it's actually going to happen there or be in the format that we think. Like, it may not be selling all sorts of tickets to the middle school musical, filling the auditorium for the middle school musical, October 23rd. we may not be able to do that. So, but we have the date there. We want to try to think creatively. Rob put on my radar last week the idea that we have to get beyond the idea that things aren't just going to happen, and there are things that we just need to try to make happen in an alternative format. So we're trying to shift our approach there a little bit. So I just wanted you to be aware that the calendar, the newsletter got pushed as a result of some of the business, but they're on the radar. Next up, the schedules. Ryan talked about the schedules, like just to give you a detail. The principals all went back through to look at their master schedules, to take a look at the capacities in each room and where they could go back and continue to balance the schedule, so we're not pushing the capacity if there's a way to avoid it through scheduling. That's just an extra step of going through every schedule, every classroom, every course to get to that level. So that's it does cost some extra work, and that sometimes we have to prioritize that. Staying in the COVID-19 update, I think we have a decision to make around where to meet and how to meet. So do we want to continue, and we don't have to decide this right now, but we could, if we wanted to go to a more of a live format and not be broadcasting, we would probably have to move to the high school library. I think we should consider moving to the high school library because when the school year starts, this needs to be a classroom because of some of the class sizes that Jen has to middle school. So it would just keep us out of the student mix. They wouldn't have to rearrange calendar. It would cut down on the traffic, number one, but they wouldn't have to keep rearranging furniture for us if we just were to go to the high school library for our board meeting starting in September.
Is it first of September when the approval is, we don't have to do the zone, or we can have like something with the state or SED
Let me check with my.
It was September something.
Yeah, it was, and I
So
don't.
I'm just thinking about a 14th meeting. I think it's early September where I seen that date.
So yeah, let me double check and get that date for you.
So that
But
we
either
feel
way,
comfortable.
we could even beam out from the high school library.
Right.
We just wanted to make the clean switch up to the high school library.
Yeah, this way here.
And then the last item is an update to the facility section of the report that you received. One of the last items is looking at the metal beams in the storage barn come down, and particularly on the front end where the garage doors are open and there might be salt on the buses and salting the area in front. The beams themselves are a little corroded at the bottom, and so what has to happen is those beams need to be cut and then reattached to a platform to support them, and then that platform needs to be reattached into the ground. And there was some debate between the architect, contractor, and structural engineer as far as the best way to do that. So the way it's a very labor-intensive process, we were hoping to find a different way to do it, which is they have to grind out around the bolt, the anchor bolt in the bottom, get down to some exposed good thread, and then find a way to attach to that and then rebuild back up and epoxy in back around it in order to do that. As opposed to the counter idea was just run new bolts into the pier at the bottom. But the structural engineer, after we went back and forth a few times, won't sign off on that, which would mean that the liability would be ours if we veer from the structural design. So it came through over the weekend. We're going to move forward with what the structural engineer had designed. So that one is moving forward. I don't know if you have a chance to take a walk out back there, even with just the binder coat on. The whole area out there looks fantastic. The storage barn is coming together. Literally coming
At
together.
some point, I know we have learning the next meeting, so I don't want to suggest that, but maybe our first meeting in October, if possible, or something, we can come in a half hour or 45 minutes early, take just a walk out there to see what that looks like. It should be well completed by now.
Yeah, we could see, we could check the offices here, the auditorium. We could make a whole tour of the capital project.
Everyone like
October?
to do that?
Yeah, great
Yeah.
idea.
Maybe our first meeting where we won't have a learning session will probably be the end of October if we have the learning, so that'll work.
And then the last thing was alluded to in Tom's section. There's a power pole that when the addition went off the back, it was just missed by the architects and the engineer. That when we built off the back of the bus garage, when that roof, when the story went up, a power pole, a power line came into play inside of recommended code. So power had to be killed, and we're working off of generator, and we reached out to National Grid to move that pole. And am I missing anything on those two updates? So And then lastly, the storage barn being where it's at, Tom and his crew are gonna be working like crazy to find places to store all the furniture that we're removing from classrooms. Because this works for summertime, but it's not where we wanna be, when the school year starts. So we've gotta find a place. We've rented an additional trailer. We should be able to use sections of the storage barn while some of that work is being done, and the contractors have been okay with that. So they're working like crazy, but they'll be working right up to the deadline also, through no fault of their own.
Questions?
They are my updates.
You got any questions? We'll move on to the round table. Bob? Drew? Beth?
I'm set.
All set?
Okay. Future meetings, 9/14, again, we'll start at 4 o'clock. And that leads us into our last guest recognition. I do not believe we have anybody on. I don't see anyone, so
There's the,
the information there is for you. I will entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session. Someone would like to make that? Bob, Julie, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are in executive session. Thank you,
One
Jim.
second, Jim, just a reminder, just in case somebody comes on, our executive session is not, we're gonna have to close out and reopen another meeting. Yep. Because.
Yeah, we'll come out of the meeting, I'll take us out of the executive session and then adjourn.
So we have to close this meeting now.
Yeah, we got to close. Now you guys are logged on for that, right?
Night, Jackie.
Night,
Thank you.
Jackie. Are we done?